The ship Aurora Dawn drifted quietly between the stars. Its engines hummed in the background, a soft, steady sound that felt almost like a heartbeat in the cold silence of space. Inside the crew lounge, soft yellow lights gave the place a warm glow. It felt safe, comfortable. Captain Daniel Reed leaned back on the couch, a steaming cup of coffee in his hands. Across from him sat Lyra, the alien girl they had rescued 2 weeks ago. She had skin like pale silver, eyes that glowed faintly, blue, and hair that shimmered like moonlight. She looked human enough to be familiar, yet different enough to be otherworldly. She smiled as she talked, her voice light and musical. She was learning human jokes, and Daniel was surprised how quickly she picked them up. It was easy to forget that she came from a place where humans were considered strangers, maybe even enemies. They were laughing about something when it happened. Without warning, Lyra leaned forward and playfully bit Daniel on the hand. It wasn't hard, not enough, to break the skin. Just a quick teasing nip, like a child pretending to be a vampire. Daniel blinked in surprise, then chuckled. "Hey, that's not how we say hello," he said, pulling his hand back. Lyra tilted her head, her eyes sparkling. "Where I'm from," she said, "it means I like you." Daniel laughed again and shook his head. "Well, on my planet, it means you're weird." They went back to talking, but somewhere deep inside, a small unease stirred in Daniel's mind. He ignored it at first. After all, she was just playing, right? 2 hours later, he started to feel it. At first, it was only a dull heat in his hand. Then the warmth spread up his arm, slow but steady, like warm water pouring through his veins. His skin prickled with pins and needles, and he rubbed at it, thinking maybe he had just been sitting too long. By the time he stood up to go to the med bay, the feeling had reached his shoulder. In the med bay, Dr. Meera Patel scanned his arm with a handheld device, her brow furrowed. "What happened?" she asked. Daniel hesitated. "I got bitten." "By what?" He glanced toward the hallway where Lyra had just walked past, humming softly. "By her." Dr. Patel's eyes narrowed. She checked the scanner again, then looked at him. "This isn't a normal injury. There's something in your blood." "What kind of something?" Daniel asked, his voice tight. "I don't know yet," she said, "but it's moving, spreading." That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. His cabin felt too quiet, too still. The hum of the Aurora Dawn's engines seemed distant, almost muffled. He kept thinking about Lyra's bite, her smile, the way she had looked at him when she did it, not mischievous, not dangerous, but knowing. The next day, Daniel confronted her in the cargo bay. "Lyra," he said, stepping closer. "What did you do to me?" She blinked at him, feigning innocence. "Do?" "The bite. My hand. My arm. Something's wrong." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stepped even closer, so close that Daniel could see tiny silver flecks in her glowing eyes. "You feel it, don't you?" she whispered. He frowned. "Feel what?" Her lips curved into a faint smile, not playful this time, but almost sad. "The change." Before Daniel could speak, the intercom crackled. "Captain Reed, report to the bridge," the voice of his first officer said, sharp and urgent. "We've got incoming, and they're not friendly." Daniel turned toward the door. When he looked back, Lyra was already walking away, her silver hair catching the dim light like a ghost disappearing into the dark. When Daniel reached the bridge, the view screen showed 3 ships closing in fast. Their sleek black hulls reflected no light, and their weapons were already charged. "Who are they?" Daniel demanded. His first officer's voice was grim. "They're Tagari hunters. They take what they want and kill what they don't." Daniel felt a strange pulse in his arm, not pain, but a wave of energy that made his muscles feel stronger, his vision sharper. He didn't know what Lyra had done to him, but somehow he knew it was about to matter. The bridge of the Aurora Dawn was alive with flashing lights and urgent voices. The view screen displayed the 3 black ships closing in, their movements sharp and deliberate, like predators circling prey. Daniel stood in the center, his hands gripping the railing. The strange energy pulsing in his arm hadn't faded. In fact, it was stronger now, like a drumbeat under his skin. Every sense felt sharper. The low hum of the ship's engines, the subtle flicker of a malfunctioning console, even the faint smell of ozone from the ship's power conduits. He noticed all of it at once. "Tagari hunters," said First Officer Juno Velez. Her dark eyes stayed locked on the ships. "They don't negotiate. If they want Lyra, they'll take her. And they'll kill us to do it." Daniel turned sharply. "Why would they want her?" Juno hesitated, glancing toward the rear of the bridge where Lyra had just entered. She stood silent, her glowing blue eyes fixed on the hunter's ships. "Because I'm not what you think I am," Lyra said softly. Daniel stepped toward her. "Then what are you?" Lyra's gaze met his, and for the first time since he'd met her, there was no smile, playful or otherwise. "I am the last of my kind, and they will not let me live." The comms officer shouted from her station. "Incoming hail from the Tagari flagship." Daniel straightened. "Put it through." The screen flickered, and a tall, armor-clad figure appeared. Its skin was obsidian black, eyes glowing a dull red. Its voice was low, guttural, and filled with contempt. "Human vessel Aurora Dawn," it growled. "You have something that belongs to us. Surrender the Clearan female, and you may leave with your lives." Daniel's jaw tightened. "She's under my protection." The Tagari tilted its head. "Then you will die protecting her." The transmission cut off. The 3 ships immediately shifted formation, weapons charging. "Shields up! All hands to battle stations!" Daniel ordered. The Aurora Dawn wasn't a warship. It was a deep space exploration vessel. Its weapons were light, its armor thin. Against 3 Tagari hunters, survival was unlikely. As the crew scrambled, Daniel turned to Lyra. "If there's anything you're not telling me, now's the time." Lyra stepped closer, her voice urgent but calm. "The bite. It was my only way to help you. My people carry something in our blood, a symbiont. It bonds with another being. It makes them faster, stronger, able to see things before they happen." Daniel frowned. "You infected me?" "I saved you," she said. "Without it, you will not survive what's coming." The first barrage hit. The deck shook violently, throwing several crew members to the floor. Sparks rained from an overloaded console. Daniel felt that pulse in his arm again, and suddenly his mind cleared. He could see the attack patterns in his head, like a map, of the battle unfolding before it happened. He barked orders without thinking, and somehow the crew responded in perfect sync. 2 Tagari torpedoes were destroyed by the Aurora Dawn's point defense system, just in time. Juno gave him a sharp, "Look, how did you know they'd fire there?" Daniel shook his head. "I don't know. I just did." The Tagari ships closed in, firing relentlessly. Shields were already dropping. "Captain," Juno said, "we can't win a straight fight." Daniel turned to Lyra. "Do you know their weaknesses?" She nodded. "They rely on intimidation. They don't expect prey to attack head-on. If we can get close enough to their flagship, you can disable its control array. The others will retreat." Daniel smirked grimly. "Close enough? In this?" She gave him a look that almost felt like a challenge. "With my gift, you can do it." Daniel made his choice. "Helm! Plot a course straight for the flagship on full burn." The crew stared for a moment, shocked. Juno's voice rose. "You're charging them?" "Yes," Daniel said. They expect us to run. We're not giving them what they expect. The Aurora Dawn roared forward, its engines straining. The hunters moved to intercept, but Daniel's strange new instincts guided him. He called evasive maneuvers seconds before the Tagari fired, dodging attacks that should have been impossible to avoid. Every movement felt right. His hands moved over the controls with inhuman precision. "Closing on the flagship!" the helm officer shouted. Lyra moved beside him, her eyes locked on the enemy ship. "Aim for the dorsal ridge. The array is there. One hit will blind their fleet." Daniel gave the order. The Aurora Dawn's main gun fired. The shot struck exactly where she'd said, tearing through the enemy's armor. The flagship's lights flickered, its weapons falling silent. The other two hunters hesitated, then broke formation, retreating into the darkness of space. The bridge erupted in cheers, but Daniel didn't smile. His pulse was still pounding, not from the battle, but from the strange, hot energy still flowing through his body. Lyra leaned in close, her voice low so only he could hear. "Now you understand why they want me, and why you can never go back to being only human." Daniel looked at her, his mind spinning. "What exactly did you give me?" he asked. Lyra's gaze was steady. "Something that will save you, or destroy you." That night, Daniel sat alone in his quarters, staring at his hand, the one she had bitten. The faint mark was still there, a tiny crescent of teeth. He could feel the symbiont inside him now, not just as energy, but as presence. It was aware of him, watching him, waiting. A soft knock at the door broke his thoughts. It was Lyra. "They will come again," she said. "And next time, they will bring more than hunters, more than hunters." Daniel leaned back, studying her. "Then you'd better tell me everything. From the beginning." She hesitated, then stepped inside, the door sliding shut behind her. The door to Daniel's quarters closed with a quiet hiss. Lyra stood in the dim light, her silver hair catching a soft glow from the desk lamp. She didn't speak right away. Instead, she scanned the room slowly, as if making sure they were alone, and that no one could hear them. Daniel gestured to the chair opposite, his desk. "Sit." She did, her posture calm but her eyes sharp, watchful. Daniel sat across from her, leaning forward. "You said I can never go back to being only human," he began. "Tell me why." Lyra's gaze locked on his. "Because you are no longer just human. You carry the symbiont now. It is part of you, and it will change you in ways you cannot undo." Daniel felt that same hot pulse in his arm. "Then explain. No riddles. I want the truth." Lyra took a slow breath. "My people, the Clyran, were not always hunted. Long ago we were warriors, protectors. The symbiont was our greatest weapon. It bonds with a host, rewriting the body, sharpening the mind. In battle, a bonded Clyran could move faster than thought, strike harder than any weapon. We were unstoppable." She looked away for a moment. "But the power has a cost. The symbiont is alive. It has instincts. It wants to protect itself and its host. But to do so, it sometimes takes control." Daniel's brows knit together. "You mean it can control me?" Lyra's voice dropped. "Only if you let it. But the more you use it, the more it will whisper. And the more it whispers, the more you will listen." Daniel leaned back, silent. The idea of something living inside him, something that could think, sent a shiver down his spine. He remembered how, during the battle, his body had moved before his mind even caught up. Was that him? Or was it the symbiont? Lyra's voice broke the silence. "The Tagari want me because I am the last pure Clyran with an unbroken symbiont. They have been trying to breed it into their own warriors for decades. But it doesn't work for them. Only humans, only you, it seems, can survive the bond." Daniel's head shot up. Only humans? How do you know that? Because you are the first human I've ever given it to, she said quietly. The weight of her words hung in the air. Daniel rubbed his forehead. So I'm an experiment? No, Lyra said quickly. I chose you because you saved me when you didn't have to. I thought, maybe you would be strong enough to control it. Daniel let out a sharp laugh, though there was no humor in it. Strong enough? You should have asked me first. Lyra didn't look away. If I had asked, you would have said no, and we would both be dead now. Before Daniel could answer, the intercom crackled. Juno's voice came through, tense. Captain, you need to come to the med bay. Now. They found Dr. Patel waiting beside a medical scanner. She looked uneasy. What's going on? Daniel asked. Patel glanced at Lyra, then back at Daniel. I've been running blood tests. Whatever's in your system, it's rewriting your DNA. Rapidly. Daniel frowned. Rewriting how? Your cells are regenerating at a rate I've never seen, Patel said. Your muscle density is increasing, your reflexes are faster, and your brain activity is off the charts. But there's something else. I think it's growing inside you. Daniel stiffened. Growing? Patel nodded. The symbiont. It's not just in your blood. It's forming something in your spinal column. I don't know what it's for, but it's alive. Lyra stepped forward. It's for defense. It will protect him. Patel gave her a sharp look. Or it will consume him. That night, Daniel stood alone in the observation deck, staring at the endless stars. His arm tingled again, but this time the sensations spread through his whole body. His vision sharpened so much he could see faint colors in the blackness outside, ultraviolet glows from distant stars, things no human eyes could normally see. Voice, not his own, whispered at the back of his mind. They will come again. We will be ready. Daniel gritted his teeth. We are one now. He spun around, as if expecting to see someone behind him. But he was alone. Over the next 2 days, the Aurora Dawn traveled deeper into uncharted space, hoping to lose any Tagari ships tracking them. But Daniel noticed things changing. He could hear heartbeats in the next room. He could smell the faint chemical burn of an overloaded power relay before it sparked. His body healed a small cut on his hand in minutes. And sometimes, during combat, drills, his movements were so fast that his crew stopped and stared. But the strangest thing was the dreams. In them, he saw alien battlefields, fought with weapons he didn't recognize, moved in ways no human could. And in every dream, there was always another presence, fighting beside him, guiding him. On the 3rd day, the hunters returned. Alarm blared through the ship as 3 new Tagari warships appeared from hyperspace, larger and more heavily armed than before. Shields up, Daniel ordered, moving to the bridge. Lyra appeared at his side almost instantly, her expression grim. They won't stop this time. They'll board us. Take you alive. Daniel's jaw tightened. They'll have to try. The first volley slammed into the Aurora Dawn, shaking the ship violently. Consoles sparked, and the smell of burnt circuitry filled the air. Daniel moved before he even thought, ordering evasive maneuvers that took them through narrow asteroid debris, dodging blasts that should have destroyed them. The crew followed his commands without hesitation, even though they didn't understand how he knew where the Tagari would fire. One of the enemy ships pulled ahead, preparing to launch boarding pods. Daniel's vision shifted. Suddenly, he saw the pod's trajectory before it was fired. He ordered weapons to fire at the exact spot it would appear, and seconds later, the boarding pod was vaporized before it even left the ship. Juno stared at him. How did you— Don't ask, Daniel said, eyes locked on the remaining ships. But the Tagari weren't giving up. 2 more ships closed in, pinning the Aurora Dawn between them. Lyra stepped closer, her voice low. Let me take the controls, she said. Daniel shook his head. No, I've got this. She studied him for a long moment, then gave a small, almost proud nod. Then let the symbiont guide you. Trust it. Daniel hesitated, then let go. He stopped fighting the strange instincts and let them flood through. Him. The next few minutes were a blur of impossible maneuvers. The Aurora Dawn twisted and rolled between enemy fire, its guns hitting weak points in the Tagari armor with pinpoint accuracy. The crew worked like they were part of one mind. His mind. Within minutes, one Tagari ship was crippled, the second forced to retreat. But as the last ship tried to flee, something inside Daniel flared with a fierce, almost animal desire. No survivors. He fired without hesitation, destroying the final ship in a brilliant explosion. The bridge went silent. Juno looked at him. Her voice low. "Captain, they were retreating." Daniel blinked as if waking from a dream. He looked down at his hands. They were shaking. Lyra's voice was quiet but firm. "The symbiont protected you, but it also made you more." Daniel stared at her. "More or less human?" She didn't answer. That night, Daniel didn't sleep. He sat in his quarters, staring at the stars again. The voice inside him spoke once more. They will come again. And when they do, we will not run. We will hunt them. Daniel didn't answer, because a part of him, a growing part, agreed. The Aurora Dawn floated in the dark, its hull still scarred from the last battle. Inside, the air was tense. Repairs were underway, but the crew's whispers carried down every hallway. They weren't whispering about the damage. They were whispering about the captain. Daniel sat alone in the briefing room, the lights dim. He stared at the tactical map, projected above the table, a star chart dotted with Tagari patrol routes. His jaw was tight, his eyes cold. The symbiont's voice was there again, soft and steady. "They will not stop hunting you." Strike first. Daniel didn't argue this time. He knew it was right. The door slid open. Juno stepped inside, her face unreadable. "You called for me?" Daniel nodded. "Yes. I'm done running." Her brow furrowed. "Captain, with all due respect, we barely survived the last fight." Daniel leaned forward. "And they'll just keep coming until we're dead, unless we take the fight to them." Juno hesitated. "Are you talking about hunting them?" Daniel's lips curved into a grim smile. "Exactly." An hour later, the senior officers gathered in the same room. Lyra stood against the wall, silent but watching everything. Daniel activated the map again. "The Tagari have a forward base here," he said, pointing to a red star system. "It's small, light defenses. If we hit it, we'll cripple their tracking network in this sector. They won't be able to follow us." Dr. Patel frowned. "Captain, the Aurora Dawn is not a warship. You'd be leading us into suicide." Daniel's eyes locked on hers. "We've already survived what they thought was impossible. Twice. And I have an advantage they don't." Everyone knew what he meant. No one said it. They argued for nearly an hour, but in the end, Daniel gave the order. They would go on the offensive. The next 2 days were a blur of preparation. Weapons were overhauled. Extra armor plating was welded into place. Crew members drilled for boarding actions, something the Aurora Dawn had never been meant for. Daniel moved among them, faster and sharper than ever. He corrected gunnery angles without needing instruments. He spotted faults in targeting systems just by glancing at them. The crew obeyed, but they didn't meet his eyes. Juno noticed. "They're afraid of you," she said quietly one night, as they walked the lower deck. Daniel didn't answer at first. "Good. Fear keeps people alive." She stopped walking. "That's not the kind of captain you used to be." Daniel looked at her, and for a moment there was something cold and alien in his gaze. "Maybe I'm not the same captain anymore." When they reached the Tagari base, there was no hesitation. The base floated above a dead moon, its black spires lit with faint red lights. Smaller ships patrolled the area, but Daniel's mind, and the symbionts, saw every weakness instantly. "Helm," Daniel said calmly. "Bring us in at attack vector 3. Target the comms tower first." The Aurora Dawn moved like a predator in the dark. The first barrage of fire took out the tower in seconds, leaving the base unable to call for help. The Tagari patrol ship scrambled, but Daniel's voice cut through the chaos with perfect timing. "Shift to port. Fire on the fuel depot." The explosion lit up space, debris scattering in all directions. 2 patrol ships were caught in the blast and torn apart. The base launched boarding pods, desperate to stop the attack. "Let them come," Daniel ordered. Lyra gave him a sharp look but said nothing. When the pods hit, Daniel led the defense himself. The symbiont took over in bursts, moving his body with terrifying speed and precision. Tagari warriors fell before they even understood what was happening. Throats crushed, weapons twisted from their hands, armor pierced by strikes too strong for a human to make. Some crew members froze, watching their captain fight like something out of a nightmare. By the time the last Tagari fell, the deck was littered with bodies. Daniel stood in the center, breathing hard but uninjured. His eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. "Captain," Lyra said quietly as she approached, "you're letting it take too much control." Daniel turned to her. "I'm winning. That's all that matters." She shook her head. "It matters more than you know. The more it acts for you, the more it becomes you." They finished the attack in less than an hour. The Tagari base was gone and reduced to a smoldering ruin in the dead moon's orbit. The crew celebrated quietly, but the victory felt different. Juno watched Daniel from across the mess hall later that night. He moved among the crew with the same authority as always, but his smiles didn't quite reach his eyes. When someone made a joke, he laughed, but too late, like he'd calculated the right moment. It was as if something inside him was rehearsing being human. That night, Daniel found himself standing at the observation deck again. The stars seemed brighter than before, every movement of light and shadow clear to him. Lyra appeared beside him. "You're changing faster than I expected." Daniel didn't look at her. "Good. I'll need the strength for what's next." Her voice was soft. "And what is next?" He turned to face her, and the faint glow in his eyes seemed stronger. "We don't just destroy their bases. We take the fight to their homeworld." Lyra's expression darkened. "That would be genocide?" Daniel didn't blink. "That would be survival." She stepped closer, her voice firm. "That's not you talking. That's the symbiont." He smiled, but it wasn't warm. "Maybe there's no difference anymore." In the quiet that followed, Lyra's thoughts were her own. She had given him the symbiont to save his life, but now she wondered if she had given the galaxy something much more dangerous. The hunters had been chasing prey. Now, they had created a predator. The Aurora Dawn moved through the black sea of space like a silent spear. No music in the mess hall, no laughter in the corridors. The air on board was heavy. It had been 6 days since the destruction of the Tagari forward base. 6 days since Daniel had looked at his crew with those faintly glowing eyes and told them they were going to attack the Tagari homeworld. And in those 6 days, the crew had begun to change too. Not physically, but in how they looked. At their captain. Juno watched Daniel from across the bridge as he stood at the forward console, scanning hyperspace routes. He barely spoke anymore unless it was to give an order. When he did speak, his voice was calm, controlled. Too controlled. When the ship encountered a drifting civilian freighter that had sent a distress call, Daniel ignored it. "We stay on course," he said without even glancing at the transmission. Juno had stepped forward, protesting. "They're unarmed. They need help." "They're not our mission," Daniel replied, his eyes never leaving the nav display. "We waste time. We lose the advantage." The crew obeyed, but Juno saw the looks they gave each other when Daniel wasn't watching. That was the first fracture. Later that night, Juno sat in the med bay with Dr. Patel. The doctor had been studying Daniel's latest scans, her face pale. "It's accelerating," Patel whispered. "His neural pathways are lighting up in patterns no human should have. I think the symbiont is integrating deeper, rewriting more than just his body." Juno frowned. "You're saying it's changing who he is?" Patel nodded slowly. "And I don't know if we can reverse it." The next morning, Daniel gathered the senior officers in the briefing room. The holo map lit up with a red star far across the chart. "The Tagari homeworld," Daniel said. "Heavily defended. Their command center is here." He pointed to a black spire in the planet's southern hemisphere. "We hit it. We break. Their ability to coordinate attacks across this sector." Dr. Patel shook her head. "You mean we assassinate their entire leadership?" Daniel's gaze was steady. "Yes." Lyra shifted uncomfortably. "Daniel, that will cause a war on a scale you've never seen. Millions will die." His voice was quiet but firm. "Millions are already dying because of them. This ends it." The meeting ended with no cheers, no rallying cries, only silence. That night, in the cargo bay, Juno gathered a small group of trusted crew members. Her voice was low. "If we follow him to that planet, we might not come back. And even if we do, we won't be the same people who left." One engineer whispered, "Are you saying we take him out?" Juno shook her head quickly. "No, but we may have to stop him. If he won't turn the ship around, we have to make the choice he won't." Daniel wasn't unaware. The symbiont's voice whispered constantly now. "They doubt you. They will betray you. Strike first." Daniel stood in the shadows above the catwalk, watching the small meeting unfold below. His hearing was sharper than ever. He could make out every word, every heartbeat. When Juno dismissed them, Daniel stepped back into the darkness. He didn't confront her. Not yet. 2 days later, the Aurora Dawn emerged from hyperspace near the edge of the Tagari home system. The homeworld loomed far ahead, a dark sphere surrounded by rings of defense satellites and patrolling warships. The crew stared at the sight in silence. "This is it," Daniel said, his voice carrying across the bridge. No turning back, Juno's. Hands tightened on the railing. "Captain, I request we reconsider. We can still find another way. Diplomacy, negotiation." Daniel turned to face her fully. "There is no negotiation with predators. They've been hunting us from the moment we entered their space. We end it now." The first Tagari warships moved in to intercept. Daniel gave orders with deadly precision. Every shot the Aurora Dawn fired crippled or destroyed an enemy vessel. Every maneuver avoided incoming fire by the narrowest of margins. The crew worked flawlessly, but there was no joy in it, only the heavy weight of inevitability. Midway through the battle, Juno made her move. She stepped close to the weapons officer and whispered, "Lock the main cannon on the flagship, but don't fire on my signal." The weapons officer hesitated, torn between loyalty to his captain and trust in his first officer. The moment came when Daniel ordered the cannon to target the flagship's bridge. "Fire," Daniel commanded. Juno's voice cut through sharply. "Belay that order." The bridge froze. All eyes swung between the two of them. Daniel's eyes narrowed. "Juno, step aside." She didn't move. "Captain, this is madness. We came out here to protect our people, not to wipe out an entire species." The symbiont's voice burned. In Daniel's mind. "Remove her. She is a threat." His hand twitched toward the sidearm at his belt, and then Lyra stepped between them. "Enough," Lyra said sharply. "Daniel, listen to yourself. This is not who you are." Daniel's jaw clenched. "I am who I need to be." No, Lyra said, her glowing eyes locking on his. You are becoming what you hate. For a long moment, the bridge was silent, except for the hum of the ship. Then Daniel turned to the weapons officer. Fire! The cannon roared. The flagship's bridge was torn apart in a burst of light and debris. On the view screen, Tagari ships began to scatter, their formation broken. The battle was over, but the victory felt hollow. As the crew returned to their stations, no one met Daniel's eyes. Juno stood at her console, her face pale and hard. Lyra turned and walked off the bridge without a word. Daniel stood alone in the captain's chair, the faint glow in his eyes brighter than ever. The symbiont whispered again. We are winning. Soon, we will finish it. We will finish it. Daniel leaned back, staring at the enemy homeworld in the distance. Yes, he murmured aloud. Soon. The Aurora Dawn floated in the shadow of the ruined Tagari cruiser, its scorched hull glowing faintly from the heat of battle. The crew was busy repairing damage, sealing hull breaches, and running system checks. The air inside the ship was heavy with the smell of burned wiring and scorched metal. But Daniel's mind wasn't on the repairs. He stood alone in the observation deck, staring out into the black void. Ever since the fight, the strange energy in his veins had only grown stronger. His senses were sharper than ever. He could hear the faint hum of power lines in the walls. He could see tiny details in the distant stars. And deep inside, he could feel Lyra, as if some invisible thread connected them. It wasn't just the bond from her bite anymore. It was something deeper, something dangerous. Lyra entered quietly, her silver hair glowing in the low light. You're avoiding me, she said softly. Daniel didn't look at her. I've been busy keeping my crew alive, she stepped closer. And I've been keeping you alive. Or did you forget that without my bite, you'd be dead right now? He turned, eyes hard. I didn't ask for this. You put something in me, Lyra. Something you didn't explain. Her gaze didn't waver. If I had told you, you wouldn't have let me do it, and you'd be dead already. The Tagari would have ripped you apart. Then tell me now, Daniel said. No more games. What is this? Lyra hesitated, then glanced at the door to make sure it was shut. Her voice dropped to a whisper. It's called the Sithra Bond. My people used it in the old wars. When we needed a warrior to fight like no other, we gave them our blood. It changes you, makes you faster, stronger. Your mind reacts before you even think. But Daniel waited. But what? Her eyes darkened. It also binds you to the one who gave it. You feel what I feel. I feel what you feel. And if I die, you die too. Daniel finished for her. She nodded. For a long moment, Daniel just stared at her. The hum of the ship's life support filled the silence. You made me your prisoner, he said finally. No, Lyra said. I made you my equal. You just don't understand yet. Before Daniel could reply, the intercom came alive. Captain, we've got a signal. It's from one of the Tagari ships, encrypted, but it's aimed at us. Daniel tapped the console and brought the message onto the observation deck's holoscreen. A grainy image appeared. A Tagari commander, his black armor cracked and burned from the recent battle. His voice was deep and rough. Human, he growled. You are carrying what belongs to us. The girl is ours. Give her to us, and we will let you live. Daniel's jaw tightened. And if I don't? The Tagari's sharp teeth gleamed in the dim light. Then we will burn your ship and scatter your crew's ashes into the void. The transmission cut. Daniel turned to Lyra. Care to explain why they're hunting you? Lyra looked away. It's not about me. It's about what's in me. Which is? Her lips pressed into a thin line. Something they can't be allowed to have. Daniel exhaled sharply. You keep leaving out the important parts, Lyra. That's the problem. 2 hours later, Daniel called a meeting in the war room. The senior crew gathered around the glowing hollow table. First Officer Malik leaned forward. We can't outrun them. The Aurora Dawn is running at 60% engine power. If they come for us, we either fight or... Hand her over. Dr. Patel folded her arms. We don't hand over living beings to people who call themselves hunters. Then we fight, Malik said. Lyra was silent, her eyes scanning the room. Finally, she spoke. They won't stop. Not until I'm dead or captured. And if I'm captured, you all die anyway. They'll rip the ship apart just to make sure no one else gets what's in me. Daniel's hand clenched into a fist. So, what's your plan? She looked directly at him. My plan is for you to trust me. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep again. His mind kept replaying the battle, the bite, the strange bond, and somewhere deep in that bond, he felt something, a flicker, a shadow. He focused on it. It was Lyra. She wasn't in her quarters. She was moving through the lower decks. Daniel got up quietly and followed. The corridors were empty, the only sound the distant hum of the engines. He moved like a ghost, letting the strange instincts from her bite guide his steps. Finally, he reached one of the cargo holds. The door was cracked open, a thin strip of light spilling into the hallway. Daniel stepped inside. Lyra was standing at a console, sending an encrypted transmission. The screen showed the Tagari symbol. Tell me I'm not seeing this, Daniel said, his voice low and dangerous. Lyra froze, then slowly turned. It's not what you think. It looks like you're talking to the people who want us all dead. I'm keeping them away from you, she said quickly. I'm leading them somewhere else. Daniel stepped closer. You're lying. I can feel it. That bond works both ways, remember? And right now, you're afraid. Not for me. For you. Her jaw tightened. Fine, she said. Yes, I made a deal. I give them something they want. They leave you alone. Daniel's voice hardened. And what do they want? Lyra's eyes met his. Me, but on my terms. Daniel's chest tightened. You're sacrificing yourself? Her voice softened. It's the only way. If they keep chasing me, you and your crew will die. I can't let that happen. Not to you. He stared at her for a long time, torn between anger and something he didn't want to name. You don't get to decide that, he said finally. Her voice was barely a whisper. I already have. The deck shuddered suddenly, alarms blaring. Malik's voice echoed over the intercom. Captain, 2 Tagari ships just dropped out of warp. They're here. Daniel's hand shot to his comm. All hands, battle stations. Lyra grabbed his arm. Let me go, Daniel. Please, it's the only way to end this. He shook his head. We end this together, or not at all. The ship rocked violently as the first blasts hit the shields. Crew members scrambled through the corridors. Daniel pulled Lyra toward the bridge, but she dug her heels in. You don't understand, she shouted over the noise. If they capture me alive, the whole galaxy is in danger. This isn't about us anymore. It's about everyone. Daniel's heart pounded. He didn't know if she was telling the truth. But he knew one thing. Losing her now wasn't an option he was ready to accept. The bridge was chaos when they arrived. Malik was barking orders, weapons officers firing back at the Tagari ships. The view screen showed flashes of light as plasma. Bolts lit up the darkness. Daniel took the captain's chair. Target their engines. Disable them. I want them alive for questioning. Malik hesitated. Sir, if we cripple them, they'll call for reinforcements. Then we finish this fast, Daniel said. As the Aurora Dawn fired, Daniel caught Lyra watching him. There was something in her eyes, a mix of fear, determination, and something else, something unspoken. Then, in the middle of the battle, she slipped away. Daniel felt it through the bond, a sharp, sudden pull. He jumped from his chair and ran. Through corridors filled with smoke and sparks, he followed that invisible thread straight to the escape pod bay. Lyra was there, sealing the hatch of a pod. "I told you," she said softly. "This is my fight to end." Daniel's chest ached, but he stepped forward. "You walk out that door, you die. And so do I." She shook her head. "Not if I break the bond first." His eyes widened. "You can do that?" She didn't answer, just pressed her hand to the control panel. The pod door began to close. Daniel lunged forward, but the door sealed with a hiss. Through the small window, Lyra's glowing eyes met his one last time. Then the pod launched into the dark. The Aurora Dawn shook as the Tagari mothership's weapons charged again. Sparks rained from a damaged control panel on the bridge. Warning lights flashed red, and alarms screamed. The smell of burned metal filled the air. Captain Daniel Reed stood in the center of the chaos, his body still buzzing with the strange power that Lyra's bite had given him. His crew was exhausted, battered, and scared, but they were still fighting. "Shields down to 20%, shouted First Officer Harris, his voice sharp over the noise. "Divert power from the auxiliary engines to the forward deflectors," Daniel ordered, his voice calm despite the storm raging outside. "They'll burn out in 2 minutes if we do that," Harris warned. "Then we'll have to finish this in 1, Daniel replied, his eyes fixed on the massive Tagari ship dominating the view screen. Lyra stood near the tactical console, her silver hair glowing faintly in the dim light. She had been quiet since the battle began, but Daniel could feel her presence like a steady flame beside him. "You know what they're after," Daniel said, turning to her. "It's you. They think I belong to them," she said softly. "To the Tagari Empire I am property, an experiment that escaped. But you know the truth, Daniel. I'm not a weapon. I'm a choice." Her glowing blue eyes locked on his. "And you've already been chosen." Daniel's pulse quickened. He didn't fully understand what she meant, but he knew they didn't have time for riddles. "Then help me end this," he said. Lyra's fingers danced over the tactical console, entering commands in a language the ship's systems had never seen before. Symbols and alien code flowed across the screen. The Aurora Dawn's lights flickered, then stabilized. "What are you doing?" Harris asked, eyes wide. "I'm unlocking the part of your ship that was never built by humans," Lyra replied. Harris stared at her like she was insane. "This is a human ship. We built it ourselves." "No," Lyra interrupted. "You built it with pieces you didn't understand. Pieces that fell from the sky, pieces that once belonged to my people." Daniel's mind flashed back to the day the Aurora Dawn was commissioned. The engineers had talked about mystery alloys in the hull and non-terrestrial design in the core systems. At the time, he'd dismissed it as marketing hype. Now he wasn't so sure. The deck beneath them vibrated with a deep, resonating hum. The ship's systems lit up with new symbols and controls that no one on the crew had ever seen before. This ship, Lyra said, was always more than it seemed. But to wake it, it needed a bridge. That's why I bit you, Daniel. My blood connected you to the ship's ancient systems. You are the key. The Tagari mothership opened fire. 3 massive beams of energy cut through space toward the Aurora Dawn. "Brace for impact," Harris shouted. But the beams never hit. Instead, a shimmering silver shield, brighter and stronger than any human technology could produce, flared to life around the Aurora Dawn. The enemy's attack dissolved into harmless light. Gasps filled the bridge. Daniel's jaw tightened. "They want to fight? Let's give them one." With Daniel's hands gripping the controls, the ship moved like it had never moved before. It wasn't just flying, it was dancing. Every maneuver was sharp, precise, and impossibly fast, like the ship was thinking along with him. The Aurora Dawn spun between enemy fire, returned shots with pinpoint accuracy, and cut through the Tagari fleet like a blade through water. The smaller Tagari ships tried to intercept, but Daniel was always one step ahead. He could feel their movements before they happened. "This is impossible," Harris whispered. "It's not impossible," Lyra said quietly. "It's human." The battle came down to one last move. The Tagari mothership loomed ahead, its weapons recharging for a final devastating strike. "They'll destroy us if they fire," Harris warned. "Not if we destroy them first," Daniel said. He glanced at Lyra. She nodded, her eyes filled with trust. Daniel poured every ounce of focus into the ship's controls. The Aurora Dawn surged forward, engines screaming as the alien core pushed them beyond any human limit. They dove under the mothership's belly, weaving through a forest of weapons and armor plating. Daniel targeted the main reactor, a glowing sphere of energy deep within the ship. The Aurora Dawn fired. For a split second, nothing happened. Then a blinding explosion erupted, tearing the Tagari mothership apart in a burst of light and debris. The shockwave rippled through space, scattering the surviving Tagari ships. Cheers erupted on the bridge. "They're retreating!" Harris shouted, disbelief in his voice. As the crew celebrated, Daniel turned to Lyra. "You knew this would happen," he said. "The bite, the connection, the ship." She smiled faintly. "I didn't know exactly how. I only knew you could do it." Daniel frowned. "Why me?" "Because humans are different," she said. "You don't just survive. You adapt. You see limits and push past them. You make the impossible possible." Her voice softened. "And because I trust you." The bridge grew quiet. Outside, the stars shone like cold diamonds in the endless black. The danger had passed, but Daniel knew this wasn't the end of their story. "Will they come after you again?" he asked. Lyra nodded. "Yes. The Tagari do not forgive. But next time, we'll be ready." Daniel looked at his crew, tired, bruised, but alive. He looked at Lyra. Strange, alien, but no longer a stranger. "Then let them come," he said. The Aurora Dawn turned toward the distant stars, its new systems humming softly, as if eager for the next challenge. Daniel felt the strange power. In his veins settle into something steady, something permanent. The ship and he were now linked, and with Lyra at his side, he knew they could face whatever came next. In the dark, quiet space between stars, the human and the alien girl stood, together ready for the future. Her playful bite had hidden a deadly secret, but it had also given humanity a fighting chance. The night was colder than before. The wind whistled through the broken corridors of the alien base. Faint blue light from the damaged power core flickered against the walls, casting strange, shifting shadows. The human, Mark, stood in the center of the control chamber. His breathing was slow, steady, but his eyes were locked on the figure in front of him. The alien girl, Lyra, stood only a few steps away. Her posture was tense, her tail curling slightly as if ready to strike. She had been with him through battles, escapes, and near-death moments. But now, she looked at him with a strange mixture of pain and hunger. Mark's hand was on the small device the alien scientists had given him, a weapon that could end her life instantly. He didn't want to use it. He prayed he wouldn't have to. "Lyra," he said quietly, "I need you to tell me what's happening to you." She didn't answer right away. Her bright green eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. When she finally spoke, her voice was trembling. "It's the venom," she whispered. "The bite I gave you. It was never meant for you." Mark clenched his jaw. "Then why did you do it?" Her tail swished, almost nervously. "At first, it was just play. I wanted to tease you, to see how you'd react. But when my teeth broke your skin, the venom entered your blood, and now it's binding us together." "Binding us?" he asked, his tone hardening. She nodded slowly. "If I don't finish the bond, your body will break. You won't survive another day." The words hit him like a punch. So that was the secret. The playful bite hadn't been just an alien version of a joke. It had been the start of something dangerous, something irreversible. He took a step toward her. "And what happens if you finish it?" Her eyes darkened. "Then you'll be mine, not just in body but in mind. You'll see the world as I do. You'll feel every hunger I feel. You'll never be human again." Silence filled the chamber. Somewhere in the distance, the sound of collapsing metal echoed. The power core was failing. And when it went, the whole base would tear itself apart. Mark's mind raced. If he refused her, he would die. If he accepted, he would lose himself. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" he asked, almost shouting. "Now," her voice cracked, "because I didn't want to lose you either way." For a long moment, they simply stared at each other. Then the floor beneath them shook violently. Sparks rained down from the ceiling. "We don't have time," Lyra said sharply. "The core is unstable. We have to get out now." They ran together through the twisting halls, the alien architecture glowing and dimming as systems failed. The air was growing hotter, the metal beneath their boots vibrating with the coming explosion. Halfway to the exit, Mark's knees buckled. He dropped to the ground, clutching his chest. His vision blurred, and a deep, burning ache spread through. "His body! Mark!" Lyra knelt beside him, panic flashing across her face. "It's starting! The venom's taking full control! You can't fight it anymore." He tried to push her away. "No, I can make it." But his voice was weak, his strength fading fast. She gripped his face with both hands. "There's only one way now. Let me finish the bond, and you'll live. Deny me, and you'll die here in the fire." He looked into her eyes, those strange, beautiful alien eyes that had once made him curious, then cautious, then something more. He thought of all they had been through, all the times she had saved him. Could he trust her with his life and his humanity? The walls groaned as another tremor shook the base. Heat washed over them. He made his choice. "It," he whispered. Lyra's expression shifted from desperation to fierce determination. She lowered her head, her fangs brushing against the skin of his neck. This time, there was no hesitation. She bit deep. The venom rushed into him, hot and electric, burning through every nerve. He gasped, his mind spinning. Flashes of alien memories flooded his vision. Endless skies of violet, oceans made of shimmering light, the taste of strange fruits, the smell of storms on another world. He could feel her thoughts, her emotions, her hunger, and her fear. When she pulled back, his chest was rising and falling rapidly. His eyes had changed. Flecks of green now swirled in the brown, glowing faintly. She helped him to his feet. "We're bonded now. You'll survive. But you'll never be the same." They ran the last stretch toward the exit. The moment they stepped outside, the ground shook violently. A deafening roar filled the air as the alien base imploded, sending a wave of heat and dust into the night sky. Mark looked at the flames, then at Lyra. His body felt stronger, faster, but inside, a part of him was unsure whether he was still, completely himself. Lyra turned to him, her voice calm but firm. "The bond is permanent. From now on, your life and mine are one." He stared into the alien night, wondering what future awaited them. Somewhere deep inside, a strange hunger stirred, not entirely his own. And in that moment, he understood the truth. The deadliest secret wasn't the bite itself. It was what it had made him become.